Hello, good morning, and happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's new episode of Breakfast with Boom. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and I'm thrilled to be here. We have two monster-sized topics, lots of pointed opinions. Now, of course, you've already heard my my thoughts and theories regarding Starfield and its newest DLC known as Shattered Space. I am 10 plus hours into it. It is all that I want to play. I have found things that I didn't know were there. I have only done one of the main missions, but I have done at least half a dozen of other missions that if you don't look for them, you don't find them. I already have one new companion, which is pretty awesome. I'm working on the second as we speak. I don't know if there's more than two. I know there's at least two companions. But according to some reviewers, there were no new companions because they raced through the game in 4 hours and 48 minutes and said that it's a big pile stinking of you know what. We're going to get into that. Again, I'm not going to go and reiterate my thoughts and my theories because then that's regurgitation. Nobody wants that. But we do have Fuzzy here. We do have Silent Cypher, and Korkenstein is here. He's just resetting his router. I want to get their hot takes on it. And of course, the second half of the show, folks. And I don't really think anyone is talking about this, which is why I'm very excited to kind of bring this conversation to your doorstep, is how I think the Xbox marketing is not only making a change for the better, but I think that quietly they're going to have a pretty stout October. I think that this particular month is going to start to see the change in market leadership. Now, again, before I get, clipped, I don't think market leadership changes overnight. I don't think that's going to happen. Sony, their PlayStation is PlayStation, and they do have a bunch of exclusives that are third party this year. Astrobot came out, did a lot of great numbers. Didn't do as good as I thought it was going to do, but it scored very well. Silent Hill, which I already bought, and I am very excited for. That's happening next week. You have the Until Dawn remake, which is, thank goodness, not a full $70. I broke down and I bought it because it just looks amazing. And the original I played and I absolutely loved it. So I will play through that again. But listen, apologies for the long-windedness, but again, quietly, Xbox releases on the 30th the Starfield DLC. Whether you like it, you love it, or you hate it, it's in the news, and it has been in the news every day since launch. You also have to take into account this month alone, they have marketing rights and ownership of Call of Duty, day one in Game Pass. They have marketing rights to Metaphor, and that obviously pissed off quite a few pretty big YouTubers, which will remain nameless here because I don't like that kind of smoke. That were complaining about why Xbox got the marketing and not PlayStation, which was a bit of a humdrum, if you will, in my opinion, for like, where were you when PlayStation had marketing rights for Call of Duty? It was okay then. I guess no longer that's the case. But they also have marketing rights for BioWare's new game. Well, new old game. Dragon Age is happening on Halloween, surprisingly enough, and they got the marketing for that as well. I'm almost pretty sure they have the marketing because it has been all over their pages. These three games and the DLC alone, I think, is going to change a lot of opinions in the way that people think of Xbox as a brand. We're going to get into all of that. But before we do, let's welcome in the panel. Silent Cypher, it's great to have you back. Obviously, you happen to show up always when it's going to be a pointed opinion kind of a show. And here you are. How you feeling? Welcome back.
You know what? I always get that like spidey sense, right? As soon as something mischievous is happening, I'm like, wait a minute, there's something in the air. Gentlemen, it's great to be with you again. Always feels like it's too long between these every other week events. I wish I could be here every Friday, but life.
Indeed.
Great to see all you guys and great to see everyone in the chat. Should be quite a conversation. So
It's going to be fun. We're going to have fun with this. Obviously, the whole channel is based on hashtag fun. That's what we like to do. And I really do think that these are two particular topics that the chat is going to enjoy and get heavily involved with. And not a lot of podcasts are talking about it because I guess it's not too scandalous, and maybe that doesn't sell papers, so to speak. I don't know, but we here are going to have a fun 90 plus minutes. So, folks, just grab your coffee, grab your bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, and enjoy yourself and hang out and get involved with the chat, because we have one of the best chats in the business. But Fuzzy Belvedere, savior of Double Barrel Gaming, I think it's going to be Fuzzy Savior Belvedere moving forward. He had figured out his genius, has figured out why we couldn't play gameplay, and now we can, thanks to him. But how are you feeling? Good morning, kind sir.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here with you guys. Yeah, for the most part, out here on Monster Mania out in Baltimore, but had to stop by and give my take on the whole shenanigans about the Shattered Space DLC and whatnot, and how people are worried about it not selling or being played, or I don't know. The game that everybody forgot about, but they can't seem to get off their mind. It's rent free in their heads, I guess. But anyway, glad to be here. I'm sure we're going to get into some spicy stuff, but
we certainly are. And there are several journalists who live and die by the SEO. Well, we're going to get into that as well, because Jesus Christmas. I mean, you hate Starfield, but you're taking screenshots to say that you're playing the game. I don't know. I think that's kind of sus there, Korkenstein. But good morning. Welcome back. I'm glad you reset your router and got yourself together. How you feeling?
Good, bud. Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, it just seems to just love Friday mornings at 7 a.m. my time, right before we go live. I know it's stuttering, and I'm like, oh
goodness.
no. Yeah, I'm doing good. I mean, the SEO is strong here with Starfield. I mean, even like almost a year after, people were still SEO baiting it. And just raging about a game, and then now it's popped up again. So of course they're going to get their clicks, they're going to get their their pound of flesh they want. So it's definitely going to be interesting. There's a lot to say about the topic at hand, but yeah, good morning, everybody.
Well, listen, let's rip the Band-Aid right off, ladies and gentlemen, get right into it. Starfield Shattered Space released on September 30th. If you purchased the collector's edition and or the $30 upgrade, you got the first DLC for the price of, well, what you spent. All you had to do was download it. You could preload it, and that's what I did. Now, granted, it did not release perfectly. There were a ton of reported problems, especially on the PC side. If you bought it and played it through the Windows Store, which again continues to be a thorn in the side of Microsoft, because my God, I don't know what they're doing there. Either shut it down or revamp it. People like Hargeet Chani could not even load the game, which was just unbelievable. Now that has been fixed. A lot of the people that I have spoken to behind the scenes, and again, I have not spoken to Hargeet yet, said that the issue about the loading of the actual game recognizing the DLC has been apparently fixed. A shame on Bethesda for not getting out in front of that and getting, letting the people know that they are aware of the problem, because I didn't see any tweets from Bethesda specifically about that. And of course, when there's smoke for Xbox, we got to give it to them. And this was not a smooth launch. I'm a bit disappointed in Bethesda for that, simply because it should have been. We all knew this was happening. They were well aware that it was releasing on the 30th, and it's still released with problems. But granted, most of the people that I have talked to have had no problems playing, including myself. I'm 10 hours in, no problems. But this particular opening salvo, Silent Cypher, I kind of just want to get, it's one of those wide open kind of conversations. We're going to talk about the DLC. Have you played it? Get your thoughts on some of the journalists continuing to, SEO hunt, if you will. Why is there so much hate for this game? And again, we got to bring this back around to the question that is on everyone's mind. Would this be the same kind of a quote unquote energy, like the kids like to say, if this was both a dual release or on PlayStation only? I say nay. If this was a PlayStation only game like Sony wanted, I believe in my heart of hearts this would have been game of the year, game of the generation, game of the universe by some accounts. And because it's not on a particular platform that happens to be the market leader, it is considered to be the worst Bugthesda game in history, which I think is a load of horse shit, and you know that as well. Let's get your hot take on, well, however you want to approach this, a Sound Cipher.
Yeah, so I'll start it off with just I haven't gotten to it yet. I have been pretty occupied the last week or so. The only thing I've been playing, to be honest, I think pretty much has just been Balatro. They brought it out
That's
on
a very
mobile.
easy pick up and play
Yeah.
kind of a game. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's on mobile now too. So it's like if I have stuff that's keeping me away from the house, like yeah, the ROG Ally is always an option, but this makes it even easier for me to just pick up and play. So I'm feeding that itch right now. But in regards to the Starfield stuff, I find it extremely disingenuous. Some of the things that these reporters have been going on about, and it's one of those things where it's like I don't know if just all of them have very selective memory or if they have some sort of amnesia where they forget everything that's happened. So like let's go back into the Wayback Machine of when this game launched. Okay. You had over 1 million people that bought this thing right off the bat and had access. So what does that tell us? That tells us that those people had the premium versions of the game, which
Yes.
came with the DLC, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So right off the bat, that means those people had already purchased it. So I just want to throw this right out there just off the bat. All these people that are panicking over 10,000 users or whatever it is, you need to sit down and shut up
Yep.
because they've already sold over 1 million units of that DLC alone. It doesn't matter if it's 10,000 players. Guess what? This isn't an online game. So suck it up. Like deal
Yeah.
with it. 10,000 doesn't matter for shit. They'll play it when they play it. They'll get to it. It's not an online ecosystem that's suddenly going to fall apart because there's only 10,000 people playing it. They'll get to it. They'll enjoy it when they play it. That's not a big deal. Microsoft's already got the money for it. The
Yeah.
studio already has the money for that purchase. More people will buy it. What are we talking about? Like, why are people getting upset about that? The numbers mean nothing. If they already have the money for the product, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing with like a DVD purchase. If they sell like 10 million units, but most of the people don't watch the movie at the beginning of the release, that does not affect anything because they already have your money. So what are we doing? Just right off the bat, I just don't understand that complaint. Like they made the money, they've sold the units, there's interest for the IP. One way or another, whether 10,000 people are playing it or all 1 million plus are playing it, it doesn't matter. Get over it.
You know, can I just add some context to what you're saying? Because when it was reported, at least please refresh my memory, that 1 million was on Steam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if
And
it's,
so that wasn't factoring in because the digital sales across all the systems, like that's always one where we don't get
we don't get
perfectly
the
accurate numbers.
actual, yeah, the pointed number, if you will.
Mhm.
So if it's 1 million on Steam, what is that on Xbox? But here's a post that I pulled from Reddit. It has been confirmed as being true, and it says Starfield Premium Edition has once again became the most purchased game on Xbox 22 days before the release of Shattered Space.
Mhm.
The Premium Edition, not the DLC, the Starfield Premium Edition of the game.
Yes. So
So
you can
the game
easily
is
argue
selling
that
the
it's doing just
DLC.
fine.
Yeah, please continue.
No, I was just saying like you can easily argue where it's not just the DLC even, it's the entire suite, the entire experience. A lot of people just like myself held off on even jumping back into this game until it hit that 1.0 release patch. Um, I get flack for it on a regular basis, but the way that that game finally got to when they put the vehicle in and they added some of these customizations and details, that was 1.0 release to me. Honestly, I thought the game should have been delayed until it had a more content complete setup. No, yes, there's plenty of content there, but the way that the game released and some of the things that were just glaring omissions, I always thought was kind of just a weird thing. Like, just delay the game for a little bit if you know those things are coming. But whatever the case is, a lot of other people did the same thing. They're like, well, I'll just wait 6 to 8 months until the game's in really fine-tuned condition. And once it gets to that, and I'm looking at the DLC coming out, I'll buy the whole thing then. And that's why you're seeing a lot of those purchases again, is a lot of people are finally like, okay, well, it's time. The game's had plenty of time to bake. It's ready. Everything's fine-tuned. I want to jump in and experience all at once. And so you're seeing a lot of that. I would also, I find it funny. A lot of the Sony pundits out there are the ones that are throwing the biggest fit about this and being so vocal about it, like always. Tim the Sorcerer in the chat made a very good comment. How's Concord doing?
That's a great comment. I gotta admit.
Is it because you're bent so far out of shape because the game that came out for your system that was supposed to be your savior right now completely shit the bed? Is that why we're angry about this? Is that the issue? And is that why they're being so vocal about this, trying to bash on something that's already done just fine in sales?
It's, I mean, it could very well be. It absolutely could very well be.
I don't know. It blows my mind a little bit because it's like it's already got a sales track. The game's done really good. We saw how less than I'm trying to think less than like genuine opinions came out about this game, and we got the surprise 7 out of 10s and stuff like that, which whatever. It is what it is. If that's what they want to have on their resume as things that they put out there in the ecosystem, that's cool. But the game's doing just fine, and the DLC is going to do just fine, and Starfield's going to continue to live on. It's the same thing as all the Bethesda games. We're going to look at this in like 10 years, and there'll still be people playing these games with mods and stuff like that all the time. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's see now. Fillmore Pockets in the chat, and again, he's saying this, and I believe Fillmore, he's a regular in the channel, so I don't think he has any reason to lie. He says it was over 330,000 concurrent Starfield players on early access. So, I mean, just that's a lot of money, and that is a lot of early access, and that's a lot of purchases of the game and the DLC. So I don't necessarily know if we so my thing before I hand it off to Fuzzy, and please folks correct me if you feel I'm being disingenuous or facetious. I don't recall a time where journalists in the industry specifically wrote stories based on a DLC selling. Like, I don't remember that being a pointed conversation as like, oh my God, X Games has this DLC that no one bought. That means the game is dead. And this is what we're talking about. This is what Korkenstein was referring to when he says that there's an SEO hunting pack that goes out and says, you know, what could we bring in the most clicks with? And we've said it time and time again. It's just taking a dump on Xbox. Specifically, Starfield being like super like clickable, like anything Starfield, whether it's good with positive, negative, or lukewarm, is bringing in the clicks. Let's get your final thought on that, and then we'll hand it off to Fuzzy.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Like it's like we always talk about, right? It's like if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah,
and
indeed.
that's the only reason that these guys are out here even talking about it. Like, if it's such a horrible game and you hated it so much, then shut up about it. Like, oh, there's DLC that you're not going to play, then shut up about it and go play something else.
Yeah.
Go play Concord. I urge you, go play Concord. If you're so angry about what Xbox is bringing out, why don't you go play Concord? Do that. And granted, you've got Silent Hill 2 that's finally coming out, so they at least have something to play. And from what we can tell, that thing's getting some pretty high reviews.
It's
so
getting
far.
really good reviews, which has me super excited because that's one of my favorite Silent Hills in the series. So I'm all in.
I'll be curious how accurate those reviews are. Given
we'll see. We will see.
Given what we've seen. I'm a little hesitant to say that that's 100% accurate, but if it is, then good on them. You know, honestly, because they need something. They don't have anything else. So like, that's the big thing is I think a lot of the people out there are throwing such a big fit because they don't have anything else to play right now. I mean, they're obviously not playing The Last of Us online multiplayer.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is the one thing that actually could make money for them. They canceled. So yeah,
the one thing, dude, all the things. Oh man, you know, they should go play Twisted Metal. Oh, that's right.
They
Damn.
canceled that one. What about the military shooter that I know was SOCOM? And
yeah, SOCOM or how we've said it over and over again, right? But like, how about Killzone? How about Resistance? How about like they've got so many that they could jump into and they choose not to. And instead they focused on something and supposedly put 400 million into the Concord being 400 million. We've talked about it before. If that's legit, if all that's actually, you know, like why couldn't you have put some of that money into something else? Like there's so many options.
You're not wrong.
Oh,
no. You're not wrong. And it does make you wonder that instead of criticizing or critiquing their platform of choice, which is PlayStation, and again, folks, understand, if you're a PlayStation gamer, that's freaking awesome. Enjoy your console. Hopefully, you were one of the 12,300 that were able to get your hands that are not a scalper on the 30th anniversary edition, because those consoles are for fans. If you're a fan of the brand, that is okay. But instead of criticizing Xbox and criticizing something like Starfield and its DLC because it didn't sell to your desired number, maybe you should take that energy and use it towards PlayStation and tell them to stop overcharging you for games, doubling the price of something like, I don't know, Horizon Zero Dawn after you take it out of the store. And then, of course, they pulled it from the Epic Game Store because they're selling the remaster. But no one talks about that. So maybe you folks that are diehard PlayStation gamers should actually kind of push back. But listen, great stuff all around, Silent. Fuzzy, let's get your thoughts on some of the rhetoric around the Starfield. Again, this is a polarizing game for both the game itself, because the game is massive. And like I was literally saying this to Korkenstein, I can understand someone not enjoying it because it seems overwhelming. Like it's space. You can go anywhere you want. Anything can happen at any time. And to be honest with you, even like on the planet where I am now in the DLC, every time you make a left turn in Albuquerque, you're finding a new enemy or a new creature or a base or something that is not a part of the mission that you're on. And you keep doing that, and you keep finding these side missions, and that list that you have of active missions starts to really kind of get big. It could be overwhelming. You're like, oh, I need to just streamline this thing. But again, that's how I play, so I'm enjoying it. Let's get your thoughts on the Starfield DLC and some of the rhetoric behind it.
All right, I'll start off with, I haven't dived into the DLC just yet. I can't get it to proc.
There you go.
I think it might be because of my modded saves. I haven't tried on the 2 saves that are broken just yet. But other than that, gotten back into the game, played around with the updates. Like I said, I love the little buggy, even though I have like a modded jetpack on a couple of my saves that moves just as fast. It's still fun going around with the buggy and stuff like that. But outside of that, I just, like, while Silent Cypher was talking, I looked up a couple of things in reference to PlayStation titles that are on Steam. If people are so worried about how many people are playing, why aren't they talking about Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, and Ghost of Tsushima? All of them have DLC. All of them have some sort of additional content. And if you add all of them together, it's still less than what's playing Starfield on Steam. So if it's such a big deal, like right now, I think it's what, like 2,000 on both Horizons, like 2649 on Zero Dawn, 2867 on Forbidden West, and 7160 on Ghost of Tsushima. Add them all up. Just, look at that versus like what we're now at Starfield, which is like 1239 or 12,339 at the moment. Now I've seen it higher at times, and I've seen it a little bit
it
lower.
hit almost 20,000 the other day.
Which at that point, when it was at 20,000, it was higher than Ragnarok or Ghost of not Ghost, God of War Ragnarok by itself. Now that's their most recent title. That one, it has additional content, but not everybody's playing that additional content because the roguelike, while it is fun for some, it's not mainstream as the hack and slash of God of War.
That's why I didn't even bother playing it. I didn't even download it because that's just not my bag.
But that's the thing. Nobody talks about their numbers as far as, how many people are playing on Steam and whatnot. And as we've stated before, it was a known thing that there was over 1 million pre-purchases as far as for the early access on Steam alone. And it was at least another million, because I could have sworn they said there were 2 million playing.
There was. I believe you're correct. It was 1 million on each platform, Xbox and Steam.
And all of them automatically had access to the DLC. They pre-purchased like the premium edition one, I guess, to get early access. Plus, they were guaranteed the first DLC, and then like skins for a spacesuit and the jetpack and stuff like that, and one of the weapons. But nobody wants to talk about that. It just boggles my mind that like I joked about in my intro. It's like the game that everybody said that they've forgotten after so many weeks is still rent-free in their minds. They're always writing about it because obviously there's no other games on the blue side that is generating as many clicks or traffic to their site. I talked about this before with IGN. For such a terrible game that, they gave it, all these demerits for not having certain things that are known to Bethesda games, which gets to the whole thing I hate about journalists currently, is that they judge a game on what they want it to be as opposed to what the actual game is. Like we saw this with things like Far Cry. Oh, it's another Far Cry game. Well, what do you want it to be? Like, tower defense game? Well, it's Far Cry. It's going to be in different regions. It's going to have a similar formula. If they change up the formula, maybe they should just change the name and call it something different and make it a new IP at that point. But in any event, I just don't understand why journalists that want to give it 7 out of 10, but then go through all this trouble to have these guides and to have these, pro tips and
yes,
cheat codes and where to find mods and the 5 best weapons to use, the 10 best missions, the best way to get this spaceship or this build guide on a spaceship. If it's a 7 out of 10, why would you invest
why even give it the attention? Yeah,
exactly. So obviously this is all to still generate clicks. It gets those that are fans of Starfield riled up, so they go up there and give a thumbs down and make negative comments. And then the PlayStation guys, because they still are asking for this on their platform. Like I think that's the thing that people still need to understand. If it was such a terrible game, they wouldn't even worry about it coming to PlayStation. You notice nobody is really beating the drum over there on Team Blue asking for Redfall. Not knocking it, because it's had its upgrades. It had its stumble out the gate, but it had its upgrades and fixes over time. But you don't hear one of them talking about Redfall. Oh, I wish that would come over. But they always talk about, oh, we can't wait to get Starfield. We can't wait to get Starfield. Obviously, you guys want to play it. So
Fuzzy, watch the about face when Starfield comes out to PlayStation.
Oh, dude.
And all of a sudden, it's the next coming. All of a sudden, everyone is losing their minds because it's so good.
Oh,
it wasn't on your
can
system, so
I
it was
can see
bad,
the
but now it's
headline
good.
here. Starfield has been saved because it launched on PlayStation 5. Watch, you can see it. You can literally see it. Look, to add context to what both of you were saying, what happened when Indiana Jones was announced? Plenty in the PlayStation community came out and said, oh, I can't play this game. I'm going to get motion sickness. Right? and again, I'm not a receipt keeper, so I don't. Again, that smoke, waters, that's filthy water. I don't swim in that kind of water, right? But I could, if I wanted to, pull receipts on the same people that were literally cheering, running around with the giant W flag around their house,
Boom.
like this, waving the W because it's coming in. It's coming to PlayStation 5 in the spring.
Boom.
It's just ridiculous.
I figured it out. I think I know why they're going to have whiplash. I think the reason that they're going to have whiplash is because they are going to go from completely panning on a really good looking video game to completely shifting the other way when they're playing it on their PlayStation. They're going to shift so fast that they're going to almost snap their neck in the process. I mean, that much turncoating, it's going to get to you eventually. Like, maybe get some Dramamine to support your tendencies. I don't know.
They just can't use the hyperdrive, because then now they'll truly snap their necks. But
dude, I just wish we could see. I just wish we could see it, and I'm sure that there was a compilation somewhere, right? But when we saw the announcement about the date, and then it showed the PlayStation card right afterwards, I wish I could see a compilation of all the Sony fanboys that were watching it. They were like, "Oh, come on, it's not on my system. Oh, this is the dumbest game ever." And then PlayStation comes up, they're like, "Yes, it's amazing. It's
Jeff Keighley, I love
you."
Yeah.
Well, we saw the same thing with Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh.
Yeah.
We saw the same thing with Hi-Fi Rush. There was a one particular journalist that was like, "Oh, I played it on my PC, and I just couldn't. The music just wasn't vibing with me, or something." And then when it came to PlayStation, this game is amazing. It's so fluid. The rhythm and all this, and it's like, well, wait, nothing changed. The music didn't change. The play style didn't change. About the only thing that Digital Foundry found was maybe a little bit better shadow in the corner or something, but nothing else changed. So why is it all of a sudden vibing with you on your preferred platform?
The color changed to blue instead of green.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's
all.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's unfortunate. Again, this is why I tell people, find your favorite podcaster, regardless of what that channel that may be, whether it's pro Xbox, pro PlayStation, pro whatever, or it's a multi-plat channel. And if you like and they're speaking the truth, stick with them. For me, the gaming media is a tool that I use to produce these shows. But most of the work I use from like places like VGC, for instance. I happened to meet Andy Robinson in person when I was in LA. Got a chance to talk with him. Genuine dude. Like I said, most of their writers I do dig. I like the work that they put in. So they're one of my go-to sites. There are a few others. Find the place that isn't going to be just spouting shenanigans or nonsense. But I mean, great stuff so far. Corkenstein, let's get your hot take on your thoughts, your experience, and some of the stuff that's been surrounding Starfield as just a whole. It has been, like I said, it's been polarizing, and like I said, for a game that's supposed to be the worst game ever created, it happened to break a lot of records. It's the most successful game in Bethesda's history, and well, they have a quite stout history. It was one of their biggest games ever launched. That has been confirmed by them. People are still playing it. People are still loving it. There are people that, and I would definitely say this: anyone that is a SEO hunter, like many of the content creation community that uses this game as a pawn, right, to generate clicks and subs to their sites. And of course, this goes right on the other side of the coin to the journalistic community, where they use this to great advantage. You might be able to say that in the last decade of games, this is probably the biggest SEO gem any of these content creators and journalists could have hoped for, because all they've done is shit on it and making it the worst game ever, and they have made a lot of money doing so. Let's get your thoughts on what's going on with Starfield and the Shattered Space DLC.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the same thing. It's exactly on, like, everybody kind of touched on it. These guys, they'll come in, and it's not about what the game actually offers. It's not about what the game can actually do. It's not about, in that sense, like what how much fun it can be. It's what the engagement they can get out of it, and it all starts with a select few. And once they see some of these bigger names doing that, the engagement starts. And it just so happens negative Xbox news is king for SEO. It's a shame, it sucks, but it's just the smallest little thing becomes this gigantic, making, what is it, an anthill out of molehill, or making a molehill out of an anthill, or whatever the saying
Yes.
is. It just, the domino effect comes in, and it just starts just destroying just the kind of fun that people had with gaming. And it becomes, you got certain people that were like, oh, I love Starfield, it's a 9, I love it, to now the narrative's like, well, okay, hold on, wait, maybe this wasn't, just the backpedaling is ridiculous. Like I said, it's like Silent said, I mean, the whiplash is going to be insane. I just think, and you brought it up too, we talked about it in the green room, like with the Paul Tassi. It's like, look at this, isn't good. Seriously, who uses Steam sales for a game that was primarily marketed and released in Game Pass? I just, this is a Game Pass game. People forget that they're going to vote with their wallets, when it comes to gaming. Remember, gaming's a luxury. We just talked about this. I mean, look at the PS5 Pro is, I think, still probably available for sale. And that was supposed to, be burnt out, and, everyone was going to grab one, and it was going to be another holiday crazy where nobody can get a console. But it's still there. People are more frugal with their money because, it sucks. We are living in a trying time for the economy for a lot of the people in this country, at least our country. I don't, I know you have a very wide viewing of people, but at least here in the States, the economy is not doing so great. So people are going to hold on to their money and spend it a little bit more wisely. So if you can get a game, especially on PC, and this is why Xbox is moving so heavily into the PC space, if you can get a game for $20, or you could spend, if you want that special edition, now you're spending, $70 to $90. Which one are you going to buy as a consumer? I'm going to go for $20,
Of course.
Yeah, call me a broke bitch all you want, but I'm going to spend the 20, I'm going to save the $20, I'm going to save the
just a value
$70.
proposition, though, Cork. I broke or not. The thing is this: what would you rather be able to do?
Mhm.
Take $100 and go buy a game, or go get 5 months, or and again, this is if you spend the $20, there are ways to find it for cheaper, right? You can go and get it for cheaper. I bought for a friend of mine 9 months worth of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for $88 just yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So if so, broke or not, it's what comes with the package. You're getting now, granted, the DLC isn't included, which you can buy separately if you want, but you can play Starfield. And on top of that, there are all of these hosts of other games that are in there. The value proposition is it's not even a conversation that you can have negatively, at least in my opinion. But please continue.
No, definitely. And it's, it's just sad to see. I mean, there are legitimate criticisms with Starfield. The thing is, though, I haven't seen a lot of people really, they're called Bethesda for a reason. That's a common moniker that, Bethesda has. And that's just what it is. Like I ran into, I had a showstopper bug 30 minutes into it. A showstopper bug is where the game just pretty much stops. Either it's a progression stopper, it's a crash, things like that. And that's what I had. I tried to interact with the terminal, couldn't interact. My story stopped. I couldn't continue. I had to go through the console commands. Luckily, I know enough to get through to activate that trigger to move on to the next stage. But I shouldn't have to do that. So if people were saying, this is such a buggy release, I could see that. But you're getting people out here that are like, you're not getting new companions. You get 2. Andrea doesn't interact as much as we thought it was. She has, like, last time this isn't an official number, but I've read that it has over 250 lines that she has in the game now that interact with this world. So what are you talking about? I've seen people that, I mean, I tried it a little bit on my Series X and it ran fine in performance mode, but you have people saying this sucks in performance mode. Maybe your Xbox is just dying. Who knows? But to have these crazy narratives that you're just writing up and making up on the fly because you want that engagement. Listen, it's like that meme, or the South Park show, where I think they're going skiing or whatever. And, it's like, oh, if you do this, you're going to have a bad time. Yeah, if you rush Starfield, if you rush any RPG, you're going to have a bad time. They're not speedrun games. I get it. You want the engagement. You want that SEO. You want that first click. But you're going to rush through these games and you're going to miss the nuance. You're going to miss what these games actually have to offer because you're just trying to get through it to be first to the YouTube, to be first. And I see a lot of people attacking, Xbox era for their review after 12 hours. They had it up, but I literally watched the reviewer.
Yeah, but Jesse doesn't mess around. And if I'll put it to this way, to add some context to that, the amount of hate that Xbox era gets for being ahead of stories is, listen, I know John personally. I know Jesse personally. And I know Nick personally. And I can tell you, without being a fanboy, that they are legit. That is a site that has seen significant growth, not because they are clickbaiting you. No one, and I mean absolutely no one, works harder than Jesse Norris on these reviews.
Yeah.
And I actually saw people giving him shit for liking the DLC. Well, I don't know. He gave the freaking game a high mark and a high score when it released. I would imagine that he's a fan of Starfield. So if you are a fan of the game and you are not encountering problems, then you are, of course, going to give the DLC at least the same score. So it's just, again, it would have been a bigger story for them to come out and just dump all over it. And then it would have been people cheering in the streets for Xbox era. Oh, look, you see, the Xbox dudes, they don't like it. Yay! It's just sickening, to be honest with you.
But no, you can't enjoy things anymore. If you like something and you give it a higher score, that's the whole thing. Is you get these people saying reviews need to be objective. No, they don't. Defeats the whole purpose of reviews. It's subjectivity. It's an art form. Someone can look at the Mona Lisa and be like, that's ugly. But other people can look at it and be like, oh my God, that's a beautiful painting. Look at the artwork. Look at this. Look at this. They can notice what they appreciate about that painting. But it doesn't, neither one makes it, invalidates the other. Everybody has different likes. Everybody has different tastes. And that's what reviews are. That's what art is. It's, the expression of, that art, that emotion, whatever you're trying to convey in that piece that people will either like or hate. And you're fair to have that opinion, but to say somebody is wrong or that they can't have that opinion because they like something and you didn't. That's just where that discourse comes in. And it doesn't help, like we said, that you have people like Paul Tassi in the media that, portray this and want to, perpetuate that notion, that narrative that you can't enjoy things and you have to hate it because we said you hate it. But, like Fuzzy said, here's a guide on how to play Starfield in the first, where to find the best things. This is how you do this. You guys got to see, man, these people talking out of both sides of their mouth, and it's sad to see. And it just so happens, and this is where good guy Xbox steps on its own toes. They have to cut back, and I know they use assembly PR. They have to cut back, and they have to work with them on, it sucks. It's not because they give bad reviews. If you want to give it, like Colt, he did not like the DLC, but I believe him because he has 400 hours plus inside the DLC, inside Starfield. That's like 16 days, 17 days. That's not a very small number. So if he doesn't like it, I would much value that opinion because he's proven, listen, I mean, unless he just is playing the long game and he just left that shit on, for, I don't know, however long, that's fine. But I don't think he did. And, I think he actually played it. He actually enjoyed it. And I will value his opinion because he's shown he has the time, but most people don't. anyways, I'm ranting, but yeah, that's stop the SEO train, man. Just play games, enjoy it. Like I said, eat game love.
Yeah, and listen, if you don't like, I said that, and I want this to be perfectly clear before we get to the second half of the show. If you don't like Starfield because you don't like Bethesda games, or you like Bethesda games, and this one, like I said, is a bit overwhelming, you're not finding the fun that you had when you played any of their past games, that's fine. You can have a negative opinion. There is a stark difference to take that opinion and completely use it for the SEO hunting that we're talking about. That is, and if you don't know what that means, that is search engine optimization. That's what that means. And it is a big piece of business for content creation and, of course, journalists who work for websites that live and die and pay the rent and keep the lights on by how many clicks they do on a story. So they are, of course, going to be more pointed and quote unquote extra, like the kids like to say, because it drives traffic to their site. And listen, I think if there's anything any Xbox fan or even podcaster who remotely covers the platform could tell you with full authority, is that the best way to get clicks to your site is to dump or dunk on Xbox, because they are the third place brand. They are they haven't been the market leader since the Xbox 360, and everything that they do just sucks. And so again, we do have a breaking story, which I would be remiss not to cover. And I have to cover it because I have information that I'm going to read verbatim that was sent to me 2 days ago. I sat on it because I was asked to sit on the information. This is literally coming from the inside walls of Ubisoft. I can tell you, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I had this information 2 days, and he did say, and I'm going to read exactly what they wrote to me: if it breaks, run with it. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. I will read it verbatim. It is a Ubisoft. So before we get to that, before we get on to that, let me just catch up on the super chats here, ladies and gentlemen, and I will we'll cover this breaking news because it is monumental. It is industry changing. So Iman Burns, who's been a channel member for 28 long months. So Iman, thank you so much for the incredible support. I talk to Iman almost every other day on DM. He says, "What's up, boys? My gripe with Starfield is I couldn't play it for 4 days, which knobbed me off. Not a hater, just a fan. Why does Bethesda get a pass when they F up?" Well, they're not getting a pass. I don't think that they should. You're a customer. You're a fan of the brand. You like Starfield. And as a customer, they disappointed you because you couldn't play your game. And that happened to quite a few people. Fuzzy's one of them. Obviously, Hargeet is another. And so is Keasante. Couldn't get his started. That is a major freaking problem. And that is an F up. That is a just egg on the face. Again, it's one of those things that just annoys me about Xbox as a fan, is they consistently step on their Ds. And I don't understand why they continue to do that. They do that with their messaging. They do that with their marketing. And quite frankly, they do that with their games. Not every game, obviously. Starfield, actually, someone said it in the chat, was one of the best launched Bethesda games in history. And that's because they took a year after a year worth more of development to make sure that it wasn't going to be a Bugthesda game. This is a DLC that was big. It was supposed to be this monumental, handcrafted planet troping, group that we only heard about in secrets and in dark alleys. And listen, I have not had a problem, so I am loving it. But if you did have a problem with it, that sucks. And that is on Bethesda for not making sure that this was right. They failed. Sorry. But I'm not going to then take what happened to someone else and put it into my review because I didn't have those problems. If you did, and then this has dropped to an 8 or a 7 or even a like Hargeet was like, it's a 0 out of 10 for me because I couldn't freaking play it. He's not wrong for that. He could not play the game, so it is a 0 out of 10. And Bethesda does not get a pass, and there is smoke to be given, and the smoke should come. Sorry, get it together. You guys are a professional company. This is DLC you knew was happening. Why did it just take a dump with the Xbox, with the Windows Store version? Because again, most people bought it because they could do the cross play, right? And it didn't work. And that's again another ring of the bell for the Microsoft store to you got to figure that out, folks. I'm sorry, it's 2024. You're a $3 trillion company. Fix it, man. Just fix it. What can I say? But we have Cage Fielder drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Ponies on a baby tantrum. Need something to talk about." Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're just not wrong. We have Will Broke Boy Lewis, generous friend of the program, drops not one but two $5 super chats. The first one says this: Blue Side Argument now is calling Game Pass a scam because you don't include the Starfield DLC in the service. Xbox has never included DLC in Game Pass. You know, Will, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not see that, but that is not shocking. I mean, if we're going to be pointing fingers, can we just look at Blue Team and Sony and see what they've done? Now, someone clipped me the other day and sent it to me. And it was with me and Fuzzy. I had said that I believe, and this was a theory, not a fact, that when Sony starts marketing the PlayStation 5 Pro for enhancements to certain games, they're going to charge $14.99. They're going to charge $15 because they currently charge $10 to move from PS4 to PS5. So just because Sony is Sony, I think they're to move from PS5 to PS5 Pro. It's going to be $15, at least in my opinion. But again, that's a theory. That's not a fact. Interestingly enough, to go with that, is Sony hasn't talked about that. And that's because they're going to charge at some point. If they're charging for PS4 to PS5, they're going to charge from PS5 to PS5 Pro. The question is how much. So what Will is saying here is pretty. Again, it's an elaborate hoax. Anyone touting this, because there's always been that $30 upgrade for games in Xbox Game Pass. Like for instance, I don't know, the Vault edition of Call of Duty. I bought the $30 upgrade because I don't have to spend $100 on the freaking complete package. I don't know. That's okay. I'm getting the game technically for free. It's in the service.
Forza Horizon.
Yeah, just please, it's just ridiculous.
Boom. I think, and it's one of those things we always hear people being like, "Oh, well, they can't make any money on this service." Blah blah blah. Okay, so if they charge for a DLC, is that a problem? Because like we're talking about, you're getting the first taste is free, right?
Yes.
You're getting to try the game. And then if you like it, you go buy DLC. They fund Game Pass. They are then able to make more money off of the service. Like that's a service.
Yes.
You can't have it both ways.
Well, I mean, think about this.
All the things.
Let's just do simple math. Math 101, folks.
Mm-hmm.
When Starfield released, there were 1 million early access users who bought the $30 upgrade or the collector's edition. That was on Steam. Same group, same million, a different million people who bought it on Xbox got the $30 upgrade or the $100 edition. If we're just going to do simple math here, and it's just a $30 upgrade for shits and giggles to keep this as simplistic as possible, that's $60 million in digital DLC that they made on just the first 2 million customers. I just read to you that I found that 22 days before the game launches, it was number one. It was the most purchased, the deluxe edition, the $100 edition. They're making money. So again, that's just I mean, I'm actually both disappointed, shocked, and not surprised. Will, thank you so much for that. He also drops an additional $5 super chat and goes on to say, I did some research. Pure Xbox gave Starfield DLC a 50. Pure Xbox is a site owned by Hookshot Media as of May 2024. Guess who owns Hookshot Media? Folks, he's correct. I did check on that as well. IGN owns Pure Xbox now. Also, interestingly enough, Dan Stapleton, who gave it a 7 twice, once on PC, because once wasn't enough for the Xbox version, also reviewed the DLC and gave it a 7. This is not a surprise. He does have a very pointed opinion on consolidation, on Xbox, specifically, and he's in charge of all review editors. So he's the one who picks who reviews it, which is why he reviewed Starfield twice, gave it a 7, and then reviewed, again, this is not a surprise, folks, he gave the DLC a 7. I wasn't expecting anything better. There were people calling for, hey, if you don't like the game, why not give it to someone else that might actually review it properly? And well, there were no answers to any of the cries. So that's such as life. But
Boom, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, sure, please. By all means, yeah.
I just want to say whatever Will said, I said it first.
That's right. You actually,
I just want to say that. So
he beat Corkenstein to the punch. Usually it's the other way around. That's for sure. Ultron Quake, who's been a channel member for 13 months, goes on to say, and thank you so much, Ultron Quake, for the incredible support. We truly appreciate it. He says, I had to uninstall the game and reinstall it just to get the DLC to start. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is a fan who had to uninstall everything and pray to the gaming gods that when he reinstalled it, his save was safe and that he was able to start the game. This is unacceptable, Bethesda. Absolutely unacceptable. And unfortunately, it's a de-stepping moment again. I sometimes as an Xbox fan, I just scratch my head at the stupidity. I just honestly do. And it's these continued mind steps that these landmine stepping that they continue to do. Just one step, one step forward, 4 steps back. It's unbelievable. But I think we've given this particular topic a good talking to, if you will. But I got to bring up the what was sent to me. And again, I'm reading verbatim, folks. Again, this was sent to me 2 days ago. And it's pretty telling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow it up my screen because I got old man eyes, so I want to just be able to read this. Now, again, I can't say where I got this, but I can tell you with full authority, and I'm not looking to be clipped. I'm not looking to get into anybody's podcast or be picked up by any journos. I'm literally doing this because this story is breaking, and I would feel as a podcaster who happened to be live on the air as the story is breaking, not a great content creator if I did not address it. So before I read what was sent to me, and again, folks, it was sent to me 2 days ago, I do want to just get into my DMs here and read exactly what is happening. Now, according to Hazardor Gaming, who is someone that I use on a regular basis for his incredible posts, I saw this by many other websites, but I like Hazardor, and I like to get his name out there because I think more people should follow him. I think he is a incredible member of the Twitter community, and he does not hate monger. He does not, do things to get you to subscribe to him. I don't think you can even subscribe to him. There's not even a subscribe button. He does this for the community. He's a gamer. He likes talking about gaming. I think he's a prime example of how you should conduct yourself on social media. Well, it goes on to say that Tencent and the Guyout family, who owns Ubisoft, are said to be considering the acquisition of Ubisoft. Now, where is this coming from, folks? This is coming from Bloomberg.com. That's how you know this shit is serious. Now, I don't subscribe to them, so I think I can only read the first page. It says here, breaking news: Tencent and the Gelmont family said to be considering a buyout of Ubisoft. Deliberations have come after a fall in the game developer's share price. Tencent is considering Tencent and the Gelmont family hold a minority stake in the French firm. This was written by Vinci Chan and Dong Chio, as well as a contributor known as Benoit Berthaud. I believe that's how you say it. And it says this, folks. Tencent Holdings Ltd and Ubisoft Entertainment SA founding Gaumont family are considering options, including a potential buyout of the French video game developer after it lost more than half of its market value this year, according to people familiar with the matter. Now, before I continue that, I want to read exactly what I was sent. And again, folks, this was 2 days ago. I was asked specifically to sit on this until it broke, which is what I'm doing now. It says, I have some inside baseball about Ubisoft. Keep this to yourself for now. If it gets out, run with it. But for now, please wait. Turns out that the internal investigation is being launched by the Chinese and not the board of directors. Star Wars Outlaws broke the Chinese government morality cause, causing the Chinese government to ban the game in China and causing Ubisoft well over $100 million or more in lost sales. The war is on inside Ubisoft, as 5 of the 12 board of directors are actually members of the Gaumont family and have tens of millions of dollars of stock equity within Ubisoft. The talk of a sale is not coming from Ubisoft, but the Chinese themselves. They also discovered a ton of anti-Chinese sentiment in the game, and if they have it their way with a possible sale, AC Shadows will in fact be delayed even further beyond the Japanese protests of Yasuke in the game. More info is coming my way from the people within Ubisoft. This could be the drama of the year, developing story, my friend. And there you go. And that was literally sent to me 2 days. I read it verbatim. Silent Cypher, this is incredible. I don't know if Microsoft not being held up by the FTC would jump in here. I know there's been some talk. I've seen it on the socials. What does this actually mean for Microsoft's ABK cloud rights? Because that is also a deal that was done with Ubisoft. Is that going to be an issue? Speaking with someone that I trust, and of course that is Kay Asante, he says it would not be an issue. Microsoft would be allowed, if they chose to, take that marketing deal and shop it to someone else, because the company has been purchased by someone else. But I would imagine that they've already working with Tencent. The deal would just stay in place. They would just rework the contract. But again, this is incredible. We've seen the downfall of Ubisoft over the last 6 months. There's been a lot of games delayed, a lot of cancellations. Star Wars Outlaws was expected to be one of the biggest games of the year, and it barely broke 1 million sales. That is not good. We've all been waiting for a Splinter Cell. That's been gone. That's probably never. I mean, I don't know if it's never going to happen, but it just doesn't seem like it's happening. The Division 3, even though I just saw a tweet from their development house, hey, we're looking for extra, like new people to add to the team. I don't know if that's happening. Let's get into the potential sale of Ubisoft to Tencent.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned obviously that we're seeing the fall of Ubisoft, but I feel like over the last couple decades we've seen the fall of Ubisoft over and over again. This is obviously a more drastic situation. In the past, it had been stuff like, if I remember correctly, what was it? It was Vivendi. I think it was Vivendi was tied to them at one point. That was right around the time of Riddick and the game that came out, and then that severed ties and stuff. And so like you've had moments where things didn't feel super amazing for them, and you're like, well, the sales are soft, they don't have a lie in the pipeline, it's starting to die down. This obviously is a much different thing for sure. It's that was one of the first things I was thinking about. I think it was a couple weeks ago. There was a little bit of smoke starting to form around the possibility of something happening with Ubisoft, from conversations I was seeing. And I kept thinking, like, okay, well, if that happens, Microsoft's got their deal where they're doing the Game Pass stuff, they're doing the streaming, right? And I was like, okay, well, if that happens, then that reverts back to them unless they choose to stay with Tencent or
Yep.
whoever. And so that makes it kind of an interesting thing. I don't think we're going to see that much of like a drastic change on that. Like you mentioned, they'll probably just stay the course unless there's like a drastically differing opinion or they want to revisit the negotiations and revisit the terms, and then maybe Microsoft would be like, no, we'd rather find someone else. But it'd probably have to be, I mean, it'd have to be very much against their best interest to stay with it for them to be like, yeah, we're leaving and we're going to restart this with someone else. Ubisoft's in a weird place between the Guillemot family having a lot of things happen over the last few years, be it some weird allegations with Eve specifically, and everything that's kind of going on with that company. Like I've always kind of wondered where this was going to settle out, and how long it was going to take. But it kind of feels like we're starting to see maybe the exit of the Guillemot family. Like maybe they're to a point where they're just going to pull and just try and, get away from this situation as quick as they can. Sure doesn't seem like the games that they're releasing at this point are getting the money that they need for Star Wars to not perform the way that they needed. I mean, that sucks, but at the same time, I'd argue that's a bigger issue with Ubisoft as a whole, because it's one of the only games that they have releasing this year. Like, remember Ubisoft when we used to have 3 or 4 games from them in a given calendar year? And they were substantial games. They were from multiple dev studios. That's one of the things that you don't get from a lot of these studios is like Ubisoft almost probably like a dozen, if not more, studios touch each one of these games when they come out, right? In the past, they used to have them separated out more where they weren't just support studios. They were making games. You had someone making a Rainbow Six, you had someone making a Ghost Recon, you had a Splinter Cell. You had all these things being made in the pipeline, and they've kind of focused to like they've laser focused, and I think it's partly because of the Star Wars IP, right? Because it's a big IP for them. They needed it to succeed. And so they focused very granularly on just Star Wars, is kind of how it feels like to me. And because that didn't work out the way that they wanted, and Assassin's Creed is getting delayed, they're in a bad spot. Like they're going into a holiday season where they don't really have anything. And traditionally, if you're a big studio like that has a game, if you miss the holiday season, that's going to be a couple rough months. Now, granted, the game will come out. It'll come out in February, which isn't going to be saturated with a bunch of other games, so it'll probably do well. But they continue to get a black eye over and over again by it's the same thing we see with Sony. Like they could be focusing on something like Splinter Cell or like Ghost Recon, or going back to the roots of Rainbow Six, stuff that they have in there that are solid IPs that have just kind of gone astray over time. They could focus on those things, but they're focused on trying to follow the money. And the money that comes with the Star Wars IP is pretty substantial, or at least they thought it was going to be. And it just didn't work out the way they had hoped. Um, I don't know, man. I think come this time next year, Ubisoft's going to be in probably a pretty drastically different place.
Yeah, I agree.
I honestly, with some of the stuff we had heard about the Guillemot family back in the day, like if it's legit, I'd be okay if they stepped aside and someone else took control. Obviously, Ubisoft isn't flourishing under their control at this point, and maybe it's time for someone to step in. Like it needs a better hand. It feels like at this point to guide them.
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, there's been a whole bunch of behind the scenes. You know, the working environment apparently is very toxic. It is very from what, and again, this is this is just some of the stories that were written, some of the things that you read regarding some of the dictatorship esque handling of employees. And yeah, if look, I've always been a Ubisoft fan. I love Far Cry. I love Assassin's Creed. I love Splinter Cell. To your point, Ghost Recon. Even though the first Ghost Recon that came out, where it was multiplayer, the four people you can I forgot what it was called. What was the name of that?
Oh goodness,
It
it wasn't
wasn't
Breakpoint. Breakpoint was the
Breakpoint
newest
was
one.
terrible. Breakpoint
It
was
was
awful. The marshlands or something to that effect. Yeah, something like that. And I loved that game. I put so much time to that game. It was just egregious. I got almost every achievement in the game. So much fun. But the Ghost Recon that we all remember was on the 360. Those were amazing.
Yeah, Advanced
Ghost
Warfighter.
Recons. Yeah, fan-freaking-tastic. As a matter of fact, Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2.
Yes.
Oh my god! You know what? I don't throw the virtual tomatoes, but I would take a modern update or a remaster of that, because that was just freaking peak Rainbow Six.
And that matches up to our conversations in the past about remasters and remakes and stuff, right? That was 2005, 2006.
Yeah, it was a long
around that time
ago.
for Vegas and Vegas 2.
Almost 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so you figure something like that, if it came out, I mean, I'm right with you, honestly. Like I preferred Rainbow Six back in the Vegas days and in Rainbow Six 3 days, because that's when Rainbow Six was what I enjoyed. It's what I grew up
So
on.
good,
Like it's
dude.
one of the first games I spent hundreds of hours on the
Yep.
original Xbox Live. And
how many hours did you spend in Terrorist Hunt? Like,
dude, thousands, I'm sure.
Freaking, whether
Thousands.
I played with friends or just single player, it was peak gaming.
So do you remember, did you ever see the video of the kid yelling at his mom about the chocolate milk and wanting to get him food?
Did not see that. No.
So I'll send you a link after this. If anyone in the chat knows what I'm talking about, we were in that match. And we were playing.
Stop it, for real?
Wow. This kid rails off on his mom about getting him chocolate milk, and they're like having a fight over the microphone.
Jesus.
And this is back when we didn't have party chats, right? So everyone that was in there, you had proximity chat. And so we're playing and we see this kid and we keep hearing this kid yelling at his mom to get chocolate milk, and you hear the response back and forth.
Good grief.
And at one point the kid's like throwing a tantrum, and you come over and remember the characters, their mouths would move when they talked.
Yes.
Right? So you just see this character standing.
Blind Mephisto remembers that. I don't remember that.
Dude, the mouth is moving. He's like, I said I want my chocolate milk, and he's like freaking out, and he's like firing in the air. He's freaking out.
Jesus Christmas, that's funny.
We experienced that, and then I found the video later on, and I was like, oh my god,
I was a part of that. That you're locked into history there, fella.
long time ago. It makes me feel older.
Goodness.
So that's. Yeah, but that's what I want. I want
I agree.
those Rainbow Sixes when it mattered and when it was interesting. They went to these operators, this hero style type of thing.
I don't like Rainbow Six currently at all. Yeah.
If I'm going to play a Rainbow Six game, and if I'm going to do a terrorist hunt or do a mission or something, I don't want you to dictate to me what my specific role is. I'll decide what my role is. I don't need a specific character or hero or whatever to be that character. That's why I never liked Battlefield, is because like I'll make the fun the way I want it. I'll make the mission the way I want it. I don't need specific characters for that.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Yeah, this is one of those stories that is shocking. I think that it's ultimately sad that we've seen a company as prominent as Ubisoft used to be. Remember, they were considered like one of the gems of the industry. They were up there. Again, EA's had their up and downs, but you talk about Take-Two, you talk about PlayStation, you talk about Nintendo. They were in the elite. There was no doubt about it, especially when it comes to third-party stuff. And it's sad that this has happened. Listen, Fuzzy, before I bring you into the conversation, let me just catch up on some super chats because there's been quite a few of them. We have here, Michael Mooney drops a very generous 10 pounds super chat. And Mike goes on to say, it's going to be interesting to see how the CMA will react to both a sale of Ubisoft and the return of cloud rights to Microsoft. If this is a return close to the ABK deal with the CMA. Yeah, I think that everyone is watching this closely, and I think that it's gonna be handled properly. The CMA obviously approved the deal because of the cloud rights. The cloud rights will revert back, and like I said, it's Microsoft already has a working relationship with Tencent. Now, whether that's good or not, I have no idea. But if they don't feel like the deal is lucrative, they will be allowed to then shop those rights to somebody else. And that deal will get done. It's not going to affect the ABK deal, which has been done. It's just something that's going to have to be fixed if that happens. And I think that Microsoft was probably going to leave things the way they are and just work with Tencent. Because again, if Tencent becomes the owner of Ubisoft, I would imagine there's still going to be people left over from Ubisoft. They're going to want to keep those contracts in place. But we will certainly see. This is a developing story, and obviously we will know more as the days progress. We have Spectrum Blast Gaming. Well, Spectrum Blast Gaming, thank you so much for being here. And, of course, thank you so much for the very generous $5 super chat. He goes on to say, I wish Ubisoft would do something with the Driver series. Dude, Driver was freaking dope. Again, one of those. I know a lot of us want like new IPs, and when I start falling back onto like, oh, I'd love to see a new, a remake of Ninja Gaiden, or I'd like to see something like Sony return to, I always forget the names. Fuzzy, what's the name of the racer that they had? MotorStorm. One of my favorite racers of all time. That was a PlayStation 3 launch game. My God, it was so ahead of its time. I would look. I know I'm gonna get the virtual tomatoes for this, but if they remastered that, I'd buy it. I'd buy it at full boat. I'd fill it at full boat, not even thinking twice. That was literally one of my favorite racing games of all time. But yeah, I'd love to see Driver series come back as well. We have Will Broke Boy Lewis drops 2 additional very generous super chats. The first one of $5. Will goes on to say, Blue Side claiming a win for PlayStation because Silent Hill 2 has scored an 87 on Metacritic. But when Halo Infinite scored an 87, it was trash. I mean, you're not wrong. Look, I bought it. I'm not going to front. Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite in the series. I'm going to play it and beat that game. Now, am I going to platinum it? Probably not. But am I going to play through it and enjoy the shit out of that game? 1,000%. Not even thinking twice. Would I have bought it on PlayStation if it was available for Xbox? The answer is no, because Xbox is the place I like playing games for a multitude of reasons, but it's an exclusive. So when it's an exclusive on PlayStation, rest assured, I'm going to buy it, especially something in the horror genre, which you guys and gals know that I'm a huge fan. Resident Evil stan here, but I love Silent Hill. Specifically, that one is my favorite in the series. So it's a no-brainer for me to buy it. Will Broke Boy Lewis drops an additional very generous $2 super chat and goes on to say, anyone watched the Stalker 2 doc yet on YouTube? It was good. Yeah, I have it queued. It's been busy. Mrs. Boom was sick yesterday. I'm glad we weren't late. We were at urgent care early this morning. Thankfully, she just has like a flu, so she'll get better in a couple of days. But it's been a tough couple of days. I want to watch that docuseries because that looks incredible. And again, the fact that Stalker 2 is still coming out after what that team and their families have been through is just, it's amazing. We also have Tim the Sorcerer drops a very generous £2 super chat, and he goes on to say, awesome show, panel, and chat. Keep it going. Tim, thank you so much. Super appreciate the kind words and, of course, the generosity. Fuzzy, let's get into this because you're a Ubisoft fan as well. This, I mean, it's shocking news this morning, but it's also not surprising because, again, I'm pulling directly from the story that we opened up with. And it turns out that Ubisoft has seen a 40% fallen and reduction into their share prices this year. Again, this had to happen at some point. Let's talk about it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like I think the big thing now is when it came to the whole Tencent buying the minority stake in some of the Guillemot family shares, I knew what Tencent wanted from get-go, and it was kind of like a underwritten thing. They've always wanted the Tom Clancy IP. They don't care anything else about Ubisoft. The only thing they ever really wanted was the Tom Clancy IP. And maybe this will be conspiracy theory corner, I guess. But all of that being said, the way this will probably go down is that Ubisoft will probably disappear or be absolved in 2 years. When that happens, the Tom Clancy IP will exist. Whatever else Ubisoft has, they'll either keep the IP or sell them off. But it'll be for the best if you're a fan of Tom Clancy titles. You'll see a lot more of them. Considering Tencent loves shooters, first person, third person, and whatnot, you'll see a ton more of them. So we'll probably get all the Splinter Cells that we can handle. The drawback might be is that some of it will have a little bit of a spicy take on the U.S. presence in the world, considering the ownership of Tencent, locale of Tencent. Not that it would be a bad thing if you saw more games like Homefront, but you may have more of that style of flavor in some of those Tom Clancy titles. So that would be a new spin on things per se, but that would be something to keep an eye out for. But if you're a fan of Ghost Recon, if you're a fan of Rainbow Six, if you're a fan of The Division, I can almost guarantee you'll see tons more of that content, almost to the point where you might be tired of it, both on mobile, PC, console, whatnot. That will be a way for them to rebrand a lot of the no-name shooters that are on the other IPs of Tencent. That'll be a way for them to take care of, getting those named and probably more exposure. But I've always, since the Vivendi days, kind of like what Silent Cypher was talking about earlier, I've always wanted the Guillemot family out of there. Like,
yep, I agree, 1,000%.
They've been the worst when it comes to how they handle their creatives and their studios. The devs there, and they had a lot of more talented devs earlier. Not saying that they don't have them now, but a lot of them have left and gone to other places. But for the core that are still there, they don't give them the freedom or the range to be able to be as creative as they would like. It's almost like, oh, well, I like what you made there, but how can we monetize that? How can we go back and they're not necessarily saying how they can annoy their player base, but it almost seems like every decision is focused around that. So that's where you have to hope for the best that them possibly, even though that they'll probably stay in place for the initial, Tencent's all about that money. So if they continue to have a downturn as that buyout comes along, they're going to find a way to force them out the door. So for the most part, I'll get my wish of the Guillemot family being gone, but I hate to see what the future might look like for Assassin's Creed. I hate to see what the future might look like for something like The Crew. Even though like Motorfest is kind of copying Forza Horizon now, we'll see if they continue to keep that IP, or if they'll even bring back something like Watch Dogs. I hope the big thing is with Watch Dogs, they wind up bringing it back, but I can tell that, like I said a little bit earlier, without being conspiracy theory corner, that it might have a Homefront-like theme to it at that point. But that's kind of, the Guillemot family brought it on themselves. They have nobody else to blame. They try to blame their own devs for not, pulling their bootstraps up earlier on. But all things considered, since they were the ones that had the final say on things, they kind of crippled their own devs. That's why things like Skull and Bones took forever. And we've yet to get a Splinter Cell release where Sam Fisher's in his own game and not some mobile game or some other game. It saddens me, but I think for the future, at least for the Tom Clancy stuff, I'm kind of excited to some extent, even though, Division 3 is kind of up in the air, but I trust that Tencent would want that out there because they could see the potential of how much money that looter shooter turned into an MMO kind of thing would make them, as far as both on mobile and PC and whatnot. So we'll see how it plans out.
Well, I mean, again, so time is going to tell. This is a developing story. You mentioned Watch Dogs. The first one, obviously, when it released, we didn't get what we saw. I mean, remember he was closing the door on the NYPD door, right? Remember that? And it was like, oh, that's not the same game. It was still fun. For me, pinnacle of the series is the second one. The characters, I have statues of them, both Marcus and Wrench, which are just my favorite characters in the game. Marcus Holloway, and again, I know it because I'm almost positive I got 1,000 out of 1,000 achievement points in that game. Like, I freaking loved Watch Dogs 2. I would love to see those main characters come back. I played 3, and it was okay. You kept, you new characters and everything, like the old lady shocking people, and that was funny, right? You get to be the old lady, and that the old lady's doing spy stuff, hilarious. But I would have rather them continue the story of Marcus and that crew. That crew was freaking awesome. Korkenstein, this is shocking, but it's also not really surprising. Now, I'm again just reading from the story. This is again from Bloomberg.com. It says last month, Ubisoft shares fell to the lowest in more than a decade after the company cut its outlook on a weaker than expected sales and a delay of the hotly anticipated Assassin's Creed Shadow title. The video game firm has over the past couple of years struggled to recover from a pandemic-era production crunch that has resulted in delays in the release of new games and a ton of canceled titles. Again, this is not surprising. This is, I'm kind of in the same camp as Fuzzy here. I think getting the Gaumont family out of there, it might be better for the actual Ubisoft brand. I think, honestly, they have run the brand into the ground. I don't think the same people are seeing the gaming as they once were, because then if they were on the same page as gaming yesteryear, meaning in the Xbox 360 era, we would have a new Rainbow Six that was single player. What took off for them was the Rainbow Six that, which is the hero shooter. That made a lot of money for them. Remember, that game launched and it was like a wet fart. No one cared about it. And then out of nowhere, it exploded on the scene and has been making a ton of money from them. And listen, I'm not saying that companies shouldn't make money. They have to make money. They have to pay their employees. They have to be in business. We understand all of that. But it does seem, at least from the ground level, that Ubisoft has lost their way. Let's get your thought on the breaking news.
Yeah, so I think we're all in agreement here. I think getting that family out is probably something that is probably great. I mean, it's just not this whole thing that's happened. I mean, the whole toxic workplace environment stuff that happened with Ubisoft. This is all under the reign of Yves Guillemot, or however it's pronounced.
I always get it wrong. I say
you gotta add that little French flair.
Fine. It's
fine. Guillemot. But yeah, so something like that, like I think it's definitely something. They've had a toxic workplace environment, a history of that. Just things haven't gotten better. They found a formula that worked. It worked great. Brought them tons of sales, but with the changing of times, you have to adapt. You have to stay fluent. You can't just rest on these microtransaction laurels and just sit there and produce the same game. And they've tried. They did it with Far Cry a little bit, switching it up here and there. Assassin's Creed, when that was getting a little stale, they switched it up to Origins. And then they've kind of adapted, but even now that's starting to get stale. But they're all little minor changes, and they've rested on these iconic IPs that they really haven't done much with. And I don't think they're being challenged. It's not saying that they're bad developers. Please don't take that at all. I just don't think that they're being challenged enough by the higher ups to produce stuff that might just be better, might be better in quality and take a little bit more risks. And to be, it's sad to say, but it's something that, it's a catch-22. They really can't. I mean, if any studio can, it would probably be Ubisoft or maybe Microsoft, which is why we're seeing a lot of these changes and crazy games coming out from Microsoft. But Ubisoft should take a little bit more risk with what they're doing, not just be through their narrative storytelling, but with their gameplay, and change it up a little bit. I think Outlaws, to be honest, I loved Outlaws. I absolutely loved it. I thought they made a lot of really great fundamental changes to the core gameplay of that Ubisoft framework. And of what an Ubisoft title is and how it, the third person action adventure that so to say is what they did with it was great. I really, really enjoyed Outlaws. It sucks it got panned so hard by content creators and some reviewers and stuff, but it's a very refreshing change for what Ubisoft can do. And I think, if they stick with that, Assassin's Creed Shadows could be really, really good. But I mean, again, would have, should have, could have, who knows what's going to really happen. But I think getting that family out and really shaking up the dynamic of what Ubisoft can do can bring it back to its former glory. I think, they've hit that mark of, I don't know, greed, I guess you could say, of just producing the same thing every time. But if Outlaws is an outlier to what they can do in the future, I'm all for it. And I think they should be given that opportunity to explore those avenues.
You're not wrong. And again, listen, Tencent, they are who we thought that they were, right? They are out to make money. They're going to make a bunch of money off of this deal. I think somebody put in the chat, and I haven't, confirmed this, but apparently due to the stock loss, Ubisoft currently is valued under $2 billion. Think about that for a second. The IPs that they own, wow. I mean, listen, I'm sorry, I only have about just $500 million in the bank, but so I don't know what $2 billion looks like, but I know that if it's under $2 billion to get Splinter Cell, to get the Tom Clancy license and IP, to get they have a ridiculous amount of IP, and they're going to get their hands on it. And I mean, it's disappointing because you don't want Tencent to take these IPs and do what they do. And obviously it's just going to be a whitewash of, games that make money. And I don't know if the quality is going to be there. So that's a concern. But at the same time, not having the Gaumont family be a part of the conversation might be better. I don't know. I mean, I put it this way. Could it get any worse? I would imagine it could, but they've been running that business into the ground, and they're all going to be paid really well. They're going to have massive golden parachutes. And again, this is a developing story. Now, if you're wondering about the second topic that was supposed to be here, and that is Xbox has the marketing for three of the biggest games in October. Fuzzy and I are going to cover that on Monday. I'm going to take that story and we're going to move that forward to Monday's Xbox lunch break special. So don't worry, we are going to cover it, but I could not cover this particular story. This is breaking. This is big news. This is as big as Microsoft announcing that they were buying ABK. It's that size of a deal. Maybe not so much with the money, $69 billion versus $2 billion. And I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. I think it's going to be after the market cap value is going to increase. You might see the sale for $3 billion, give or take, because obviously the announcement of this is going to raise Ubisoft's stock. And again, it's just because of this announcement is that big. We will, of course, cover it as it's happening So listen, let me just make sure I'm caught up on super chats, and we will get everyone out of here. House Flan, who doesn't actually say anything, has been a channel member for 13 months. So House Flan, thank you so much for the ridiculous support. We do truly appreciate the support, and obviously it does allow for us to do the big giveaways. And we did have one last Friday where we gave away $500 worth of gift cards. Well, we're doing that again November 1st. It is Mrs. Boom's annual birthday bash. That's not the 6th because we just started it a couple of years ago, but her birthday happens to fall on that Friday, and we will be giving away an additional $500 worth of gift cards. And then later on that month, we will be giving away 15 copies of Stalker 2. That's right. You heard me right. 15 copies that we're buying and we're giving away. So you ask why we're doing that. We announced this, I believe it was early last year, and it's just our small channel's way of stepping up to help a developer that has been through it. Obviously, you heard me talk about it before. That studio has been through the ringer. They obviously were had to be uprooted from their home country because of the Russian invasion. And the fact that they were able to still make this game is a triumph. It is something to be marveled. Even some of the actual developers stayed behind to protect the country and died in the line of duty. So there is a lot that this company, this developer has gone through. And Mrs. Boom and I kind of just wanted to, you hear people say facetiously, support the devs. Well, we are supporting the devs because we're not getting these codes from them. Microsoft hasn't given us anything, and we wouldn't take them from either of them. We are buying these outright with our own money, and we're going to give them away live on the air. And again, it's just our small way of, giving back to the community and also giving back to the developer as well. But listen, we are caught up on super chats. Let's get everyone out of here. Silent Cypher, let's start first with you. You obviously are part of the Xbox International podcast. It is a show that happens Wednesday evenings, same time as Primetime Gaming, sadly enough, because I had no idea, you guys, when we moved it from one day to the other. But listen, it's a great show. It's a show that it's fun, great podcasters. You should be subscribed to them, and you should be listening to them. Even if you choose to listen to them first, that is fine. And you can always catch Primetime Gaming on the back end. We're on YouTube. We're always there for your listening pleasure. Sell the brand, brother. Where can people check out that podcast? And more importantly, follow you on social media?
Well, Boom, as always, thanks for having me. It's great to hang out with you guys again. Korkenstein, it's great to have you back. Feel like I've missed you the last few times. And Fuzzy, as always, it's good to hang out with you and talk horror podcasts occasionally as well. But yeah, as Boom mentioned, of course, you can find me on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Xbox International Podcast. As he mentioned, we do share the exact same time spot, but the way I view it is whether you see his stuff first or you see ours or whatever, I don't care, as long as you get to the content and you get to enjoy it. Watch it on the back end, watch it when you're doing chores, whatever. As long as you enjoy the content, that's what matters. It's there for you when you're ready for it.
Indeed.
Besides that, of course, find me here every other Friday, hanging out with these wonderful gentlemen, tolerating my shenanigans. You catch me maybe once every month or so on a Friday, talking horror movies with Fuzzy and Ferocious Fee and oh goodness, Presto Beaches. So you'll catch us talking some horror movies on Friday nights. I think it's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on that one, or 6. Fuzzy.
It's normally at 6, but we're off for today only because we're at Baltimore for Monster Mania.
Gotcha.
That's right. Yeah. So 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time usually. Make sure you check that out on his as well. Besides that, you'll just catch me on social media being an Ask Goblin. See me playing some video games, hopefully this weekend. Hopefully I can get away from some chores and stuff long enough to play some games. I did just pick up, so I got Dead Rising, of course, the remaster, as Boom and I were talking about last time. But I also
phenomenal.
just snagged,
What a phenomenal game!
It's so good.
They've already said that because of the success, they're considering remastering the other ones. Yes, please.
Yes.
If you haven't played it, go play it. It is so much better than the original, and the RE engine is put to such fantastic use. It's incredible.
Yeah, even something as simple as just the load times or the subtitles where you can actually read them, and they have voicing for some of the characters, so you don't always have to read a bunch of subtitles. It's just a nice quality of life upgrade. Um, but yeah, besides that, I actually just snagged that Predator Hunting Grounds. It just released on Xbox, and
Yes.
one of my buddies works there at Ilphonics, so gotta show some love.
I'm gonna buy it. I'm actually gonna buy the
stoked.
super deluxe $70
Yeah,
edition. Yeah.
the Jouta edition or whatever. I
Yes.
just snagged that as well. So I'll be right there with you if you're looking for someone to shoot some predators with.
Yeah. Oh, hell
I'll
yeah.
be right there.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks again for having me, and hopefully I'll catch you in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, yes, we'll see you back here. Razor Ultron AEC for life drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, two of the best and my favorite bold guests. I'm assuming he's talking about Silent Cypher and, of course, Fuzzy. Fuzzy, let's get you out of here, brother. Obviously, thank you so much for being a part of the show, even though you're actually out doing the thing at the in Baltimore. Please sell the brand. Obviously, there's not going to be a show this evening for the misses regarding the Fright Nights with Ferocious Fee. But obviously, we still want people to get over there and sub the channel, as well as go to your YouTube channel, which is the best place for anything and everything in the racing genre. Where can people subscribe to both of your YouTube channels, but more importantly, follow you on social media?
Oh, well, as always, thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure to be on here with you, Boom, Silent Cypher, and Korkenstein. I love your guys' takes on things and just love chopping it up as far as everything gaming related, the news and some of the shenanigans that we see on Twitter and stuff. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Greatly appreciate you guys showing up. Don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Greatly appreciate it. And if you want to hear any of my rambles or rants on anything gaming related or occasion, some recommendations on horror movies, don't forget, follow me on Twitter at Fuzzy_Belvedere, or my wife, Ferocious Fee, and that's Ferocious Fee as in Fiona, or Fiona 78 on Twitter, or do a search for either one of us on YouTube. Me for racing and my wife for horror. And no show like was mentioned. We're in Baltimore, Maryland today for Monster Mania 60. So if you're on the East Coast or nearby, head on down. It's for today, Saturday and Sunday. If you're a fan of the Scream movies, they have a lot of the cast here today. So you can get some autographs and pictures, and there's tons of memorabilia stuff that they'll have at the vendors section and stuff like that. So definitely check it out. But once again, look forward to seeing everybody that's in the chat here today on Monday for Xbox Lunch Break Special at 12 noon. Hope to see you guys there. Thanks again.
Indeed. And Korkenstein, let's say your brand, brother. Obviously, you have a very unique way. It's called a Game Pass Gumbo, right? It's a podcast that, well, when they're playing a specific game, they eat food or make food that is based on the game, which is pretty freaking cool. They have a big one happening soon. We'll let him tell you about that. I don't think he's going to like it. Get ready with the barf bag. That's all I'm going to say is we will see how you pan out. I'll be watching that live. Brother, sell the brand of where they can subscribe to your YouTube channel and more importantly, follow you on social media.
Yeah. You can follow me, the Korkenstein on Twitter, or the app formerly known as Twitter, X. I'll be, you guys, that's where most of my content is. I am moving a little bit more into Threads. I spend a little bit more time there, and I'm actually really digging it. Very, very great positive community there too. So I'll be on there, just Korkenstein on Twitter. I mean, on Threads. But yeah, we have Game Pass Gumbo. We will be doing our big comeback show probably a week or two in the next week or two for Call of Duty. We'll be talking about the history of Call of Duty, our favorite games, things like that. And then the food portion is we will be eating MREs live on the air. My two co-hosts, they have been in the service, so they know what it's like. Me, I haven't. So it's going to be very interesting to say the least. To what that tastes. I will also be on Web Dave this Sunday, 4 p.m.
Nice.
PST, 7 p.m. ET. So please catch us there. Web Dave's an awesome dude. I loved being on his podcast, so he asked me to come back on again. And then, yeah, thank you to you guys. Silent, it's good to have you back. You were extra spicy today coming in. I love those takes. Same thing, Fuzzy. Always is awesome. Very, very well-rounded, very thought out takes as well. And to your community, as always, you guys really do have some of the best community. I'm so fortunate to be here, and just the love that your community shows is, a tribute to the man himself, Mr. Boom, and the love he shows to us. So
thank you, sir, brother.
Thank you guys. I appreciate everybody here in your community, and yeah, let's have an awesome weekend.
Yes, indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here at Double Barrel Gaming, and of course, the new episode of Breakfast with Boom. I want to wish you an amazing weekend. Game wherever you enjoy playing games, no matter whether that's on PlayStation, Nintendo, or Xbox, or, well, PC for that matter. But listen, thank you so much again. A big shout out to all of the super chats that allow to me and Mrs. Boom to do the big giveaways. Obviously, when November is going to be a very expensive month for us, it's going to be minimum $1,500. And again, that's listen, we make these promises and we make good on our promises, and we will be doing those big giveaways. And again, it's our way of giving back. You find folks are so generous to us. It's literally the least that we can do. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And they would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Breakfast with Boom.